1 week ago, unfortunately, we had to let you know that one of Florida State's best wide receivers was hitting the transfer portal. But if you wait long enough, good news might happen right around the other way. So we have transfer portal news to share with all of you for the next 60 NFL draft, recruiting, all of it. Your comments and questions right here at Seminoles Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. Up top with me, big game James Coleman from the bus. Den Media Group, of course, we will drop the link in the chat because you guys need to check that out, as well as Spear Addicts and one Chris Frazier. Guys, how's it going?
Good.
I'm tired. Been traveling all day, but I'm 50 people away from 2,000 mark. So I'm just it's aggravating. I'm right there. But
I would say 50 without enunciating the F, but as James would tell me, I wouldn't be authentic that way. So no, I just say it 50. So yeah, 5-0 everyone, 5-0 for Den Media Group. So we're going to drop the link in the chat, and somebody could possibly win some money. Somebody will win some money. Somebody will win some money if and when Den Media Group gets to 2K. Keon Coleman put up some numbers. Speaking of numbers, at Michigan State, 58 catches, 7 touchdowns, and he was in line to be the number 1 wide receiver for Mel Tucker this year, but he's hit the transfer portal. UAB's got a good-looking safety in Jalen Murphy. He's hit the transfer portal, and both of these guys are visiting Tallahassee, Chris.
Yeah, it's Jalen Key.
Jalen Key. How did I mess that up? Okay.
But anyways, yes. And Coleman as well. We've been covering this particular situation longer than a week, but here for a week. A lot of people got upset that Michael Pittman left and they didn't know why. They didn't really understand it. Then people really started questioning why Jordan Travis didn't give him a farewell. And I don't know about that. But what I do know about is I do know why Michael Pittman moved on. It's because of what Florida State was going to bring in through, or they believe they're going to bring in through the portal. Obviously, I don't think the reason that one of the safeties left was because we were going to bring in Jalen Key. I think that was just a premature act of what could be happening. But usually when Florida State gets portal guys in, they have a 90% success rate. They land them. If they get them on an official visit, they get them. So I'm not going to say that we're going to get both of them, but if you go based off of the history of the transfer portal with Mike Norvell and the staff, I land 90% of them. So we'll see what happens.
I think they're very strategic. I have very high confidence with us getting, as I joked with them, little cuz coming out of there. It's not like this isn't a familiar recruit. They recruited him pretty heavily when he was coming out of high school, out of Louisiana. And we've got a good little amount of Louisiana flavor on our roster and with our coaching staff. So it'll be – and obviously this kid doesn't mind being far away from home with Michigan State, completely different climate. Tallahassee is about 8 hours from New Orleans. So I think we have a good chance with him. It's just all about this weekend. It's about showing him how he fits into our offense with Johnny Wilson. And what people don't really know is he's not just a one-and-done type of guy. He's a guy with a couple years left on him. So he can come in, be number 2 guy, but fill in that Pokey, not Michael Pittman's role, the Pokey Wilson's role where you're more explosive, and then you'll be the guy going into the next year, albeit with another young quarterback, but you'll be able to see who the quarterbacks are. And I think really his disgruntledness with Michigan State was what was going on in the quarterback room, who the guy was that was replacing the starting quarterback or who was going to be there. He wanted more consistency. Again, this is a move that while NIL will probably have something to do with it, NFL has a little bit more to do with it than NIL, because Michigan State is definitely willing to do whatever they need. Michigan State's fan base is willing to do whatever is necessary to keep them. As far as Key is concerned, we got local kid from Tallahassee, and I think the sky's the limit for him, and there's plenty of opportunity. Safety, you could go be the starting safety at UAB, or you could come be the backup safety and get tons of reps and tons of rotation on a playoff contender, which will probably still increase your chances of being on somebody's NFL roster. With Akeem did have a fighting injury since he's been there. And then with what we don't know with Shaheem Brown, which we feel like he's going to be that guy, there's plenty of opportunities and plenty of openings with regard to that.
I saw Keon Coleman play quite a bit of football at Michigan State. One game comes to mind. They played out at Washington and tried to keep up with Michael Penix. And it wasn't so much Penix. It was Washington was just a much better team along the offensive and defensive lines. But basically, Peyton Thorne, who ironically, as James pointed out, the Michigan State starting quarterback for the last 2 years, hit the portal the same day as Keon Coleman. Peyton Thorne, probably not happy that he played a lot of winning football at Michigan State, was still fighting for his job after 2 years of starting. So both of them hit the portal at the same time. But I would say that they kept that game within 11 points at the gun, 39-28, only because of those two guys. Peyton Thorne running for his life, circling the field like Russell Wilson or Fran Tarkington, and finding Keon Coleman making big plays down the field. That's the only way they hung in that game. Keon Coleman's a big target, NFL body. He's a really good player already and probably could be better with better. Peyton Thorne's a good quarterback. He's not Jordan Travis. So with a Jordan Travis, who PFF named as the number one returning starting quarterback in college football, yeah, that could be dynamite to watch. I'm looking at Key's numbers. I see where he was a backup for his first 3 seasons at safety at UAB. And then he broke out this past season with 60 tackles, 3 picks, 4.5 tackles for loss. Had a nice season in Conference USA. Is there anybody else out there that you guys are hearing is of interest that Mike Hunterville is looking at?
Malone, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss, also plays baseball. He was a kid that we recruited down to in Miami's also involved in him. Sorry, I'll probably get off here in a little bit. My guys are coming back. But Florida State's still going to be looking for a D tackle if they can find one that's of quality. You're obviously Keon Coleman, obviously the safety, and Key they're going to be very selective. So, I mean, it's not really like they're just rushing right now. It was about pruning the roster and making better decisions on how you can enhance it. And at this point in the transfer portal, there's not like a lot of guys. Like, that's why Keon coming in is a can't miss. That's why seeing this Key kid, those are just guys that you kind of got to go take your shot at. But I want to mention something. You said Jordan Travis is the what in Pro Football Focus?
Pro Football Focus said he was the number 1 quarterback returning in college football.
That's not bad for a guy who everybody said couldn't throw 3 years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
hang on as long as you can, but whenever you need to go, we totally understand. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think exactly what James touched on is the Malone kid. I think Florida State's they're gonna be very selective when it comes to getting another DE, but he I think fits the mold exactly what Florida State's looking at. I don't know his past. I don't know if he's from Mississippi, and it's hard to get those kids away from there. So we'll see as far as he goes. I haven't heard a lot of hype around him yet, but Papuchis works in a weird way. You never know what he's doing, and then the next thing you know, he's landing a guy. So it's very possible. James brought that up earlier, and I noticed that I was like, I need to pay more attention to what Papuchis is doing because that's the guy that sneaks in with guys without you knowing. I don't think a lot of people are looking at the Michigan State wide receiver and they think he's going to go to LSU for sure because they're interested in him. And I don't blame that because he is from Louisiana and he would be much closer to home. But why is Florida State getting the visit? That's the only question I have for LSU fans because they were asking me, why did we think we had a shot? The reason I think that we have a shot, more than a shot, is because he's coming to us first. And I don't know that he leaves without committing to us, to be completely honest. We don't usually let him go unless they commit. If he does, it'll be one of the first. But I think he's really excited for what the offense at Florida State's got, and the way he would fit into the mesh would be – I think Florida State would go from dangerous to just Nate Baum explosive. Like, it would be very hard to say that Florida State doesn't have the best offense in the ACC for sure. Um, I do think I wanted to get both of y'all's opinion real quick, but Robert Griffin III said that Clemson's going to surprise everybody this year and they're going to win a national title. I'm just wondering if y'all saw any of that because I didn't. I haven't seen that. So that was a bold statement.
Yeah, that was not a bold statement 5 years ago, but it's a bold statement now. You take that one, James, since you are short on time.
Can you repeat what you just said? My bad.
So Robert Griffin III said that Clemson was going to surprise everyone and win a national title this year.
I mean, it depends on how well they feel about their quarterback. So I don't think Clemson's going to surprise. I think Clemson's going to surprise people and be better than what they anticipated. But as far as winning a national championship, that's a bold statement right now.
Yeah, I never underestimate Dabo Swinney. He's done a great job there, but he's had a generational quarterback when they've won national championships. And Cade Klubnik has a lot to learn and a lot of growth and development to undergo. Wow. And their defense needs to be vintage Clemson defense. They were good last year. They had a good defense. They didn't have a championship defense. And their wide receiver play has gone from arguably the best room in the country with all the guys that we could sit here and name for 20 minutes that were phenomenal there for 7 or 8 years to a really average wide receiver core. So they're going to have to be a much different team than they were last year when they couldn't keep up with anybody who was strong, meaning Tennessee, South Carolina, and Notre Dame. You know, they got whacked in 2 of those games.
Yeah, Coleman said that this was him getting interviewed, but Coleman said they throw the ball a lot, which I like. They talk about me coming here and playing and being part of that offense. I can be a deep threat jump ball guy for them. They're taking 3 receivers, I think. I like what they do. Just a tight relationship with the coaches. They always have good teams, and they play in a good conference. I did the virtual tour, which was good. That was my first time seeing FSU.
That sounds good.
We'll see what happens.
That sounds good. Jaden Daniels is a really good quarterback. I would say that Jordan Travis right now is better. Not by a ton, but that's one man's opinion. But yeah, JT over JD at this point for me. But again, I don't think it's substantial, but I think he's just more dynamic with his legs and more consistent with his arm. I don't know if he's got a stronger arm, but he's more consistent with it.
I think you also just have different weapons. You have Trey Benson. You know what you have in the running game. You know what you have with Johnny Wilson. We've seen what he's able to do. He's getting better running routes and his contested catches. And now you've got Jaheim Bell, who's a threat as a wide receiver as well as a tight end. So if you come in as Coleman, like it's not about are you going to be the number one guy and get a majority of the catches. It's can you get you 40 to 50 receptions and can you make things happen and will there be big plays? That's what people want to see in the NFL. They want to see big plays. Nobody cares about catching hitches and out routes. They want to see can you take a hitch and take it to the house or can you run the go route?
Chris, we appreciate you being here. What have you been working on this week at Spear Addicts?
We're setting up quite a few interviews, to be completely honest. Been waiting on this particular permit, but I'm not going to be able to hold them off any longer, so I'm going to have to start interviewing people whether I'm ready or not. We've got quite a few former guys that are coming on. I'm going to bring James Wilder Jr. on. We're going to talk about everything that he's got going on. I've got 2 guys that are silently committed to Florida State, but by the time they come on, they won't be silently committed anymore. I've got one of the coaches at Florida State's going to come on as well. And then we're going to talk to President McCullough at Florida State as well here in the very soon weeks to come.
Folks, check out James at Den Media Group. We're dropping the link right now to Den Media Group. James, what's going on there these days?
Right now, I'll probably be doing some behind the scenes stuff, but I got a bus full of high school boys that smell like their Nirvana song right now as they're coming from practice. We're here for the Final Four in Naples for lacrosse. But outside of that, I'm just trying to get 50 more people to sign up to Den Media Group so we can do a $200 giveaway. I'll be recording tonight right around 9:30 p.m. tonight doing the show. So if we get to 50 by then, we'll have some money to give away by then. But outside of that, we're just similar to Chris, just trying to continue to produce, working on some things so we can produce good content.
Most of us are on the internet pretty much all the time. It's fun. You get to socialize, you get entertained, and in this day and age, it's pretty much necessary. And even if you're one of those people that's not on the internet all the time, you know what is? Your personal information. And there are people out there trying to hack you all the time. They want your email address, they want your phone number, they want your place of employment, and they want to do bad things with it. There's also fairly legitimate corporations and companies that want your information. They want it for marketing purposes. They're going to buy it, they're going to sell it, they're going to trade it. At the very least, it's annoying to you. It's a nuisance, it's aggravating. Your email gets cluttered up with spam email. You get robocalls all the time. That's at the very least. At the worst, it's a threat to your family, to your friends, to your personal information, to your banking, to your finances, to your security, to your safety, to your identity. It can be pretty serious. This video is sponsored by Aura. I got hacked and it was pretty obvious. This was about 8 or 9 months ago. And there were red flags all over the place. And I didn't exactly know what to do, but I knew I needed to do something quickly. I mean quickly. I researched 8, 10, or 12 companies immediately. I went all over the place. I asked people. I was online looking for the best company that could serve my needs and secure my information. You know who I found? Aura. And I'm glad I did. It was amazing. I contacted them. They got right back to me immediately. Their customer support is phenomenal. Their customer service is first-rate, friendly. They are detailed. They know what they're doing, and they do it right, and they will protect you. In addition to everything I just mentioned, they've got a password-keeping service. They keep your credit score. They notify you anytime there's a possible data breach. This has happened to me a number of times. I'm getting notifications all the time when there's a possible compromise to my credit score or anything that I don't want. They've got a VPN that will allow you to browse the internet anonymously. It's amazing. And again, customer service support available 24/7. Click the link in the description section below and get 2 free weeks of Aura. Protect your finances, protect your information, protect your privacy, protect your identity. I did, and I'm glad I did. Aura, thank you so much for what you've done for me, and now for my Voice of College Football community. What's kind of cool about that sponsorship is that would be the first one where I was approached by somebody and I said, you know what? I already use this, so that works. And they were like, really? I said, yeah. So I was able to tell my own personal story on how they've helped me. So check that out, everyone. Chris, we always hit you up on the recruiting front. Any new news on leans or anything else out there?
Yeah, this month and June is going to be very special. We've got 4 particular guys that when they go ahead and make it public, a lot of people are asking me this question right now. It feels like we're kind of stale. It feels like recruiting period still around the country, so everybody's wondering what's going on. And what it is that NIL is here, and what they're doing is allowing guys' names to stick around as long as possible and be talked about as much as they possibly can, even if media does or does not speak on it as much as they would like. They're going to give them all the shine that they can possibly give. And that's the reason why it's a little bit quiet. But it won't be very soon. I was anticipating not that it was a commit, but I was expecting something at 6 o'clock today. I just got that I can't release yet, but I don't know if y'all heard my phone go off, but it pops up on my computer as well. I know why there's a holdup, so we will see here in the next probably 30 minutes or so, I would think, but I don't have that for sure. But we have quite a few guys that Florida State has just not laid off of. They're trying to flip someone that's actually committed to Michigan State right now. I'm not going to bring up his name because we're doing a very good job on him, and he is verbally committed to Michigan State right now. But he has been at Florida State quite some time now. He has stayed for a long time, a long visit. And when I say long, it's multiple days. And I think Florida State has really spoke him into possibly flipping to us. So we'll see what happens. I don't have much more than that right now.
James, with Jamie Robinson going to Carolina in the 5th round, do you have any thoughts about his pro future?
Yeah, 4-year, 4-year contract, about $4 million, $325,000 signing bonus. Those are the numbers that make you feel like, hey man, I might be here for a little bit. That these guys actually want. The NFL is less about talent and more about what their contract says. That the more guaranteed money that you have, the less likely you are to get cut. But he's a good guy that's going to be able to fill the box, be able to make tackles, good in coverage. And he's a part of a young team and with a new coach. So that's really, really good because there is no true established culture there. So you can go in there and take somebody's job being a 4th round pick. Whereas normally if you were with an established program or established NFL franchise with a coach, it might be a little bit harder. But they've drafted you in that position that early, which doesn't sound like it's early, but 4th round is one of those rounds that I don't call it a vanity round. 5th, 6th, and 7th round are vanity rounds. Like, the difference between a 5th, 6th, and a 7th round pick and an undrafted free agent all depends on the contract. But typically, when you're in that 4th round, they're probably not going to end up cutting you.
So, James, like we talked about, this was not a vintage draft for Florida State, and that's a good thing because guys came back that could have went to the league, and they can now make a run with Florida State in 2023. But obviously, we're always about thinking about what's next year, and that's just the media process. And so as soon as that last pick came off the board for 2023, there was all sorts of talk about what's the 2024 mock draft look like. And for Florida State, they're going to be flooding the draft. So James, for you, because you experienced this for yourself in your quest to go to the NFL, you were surrounded by dudes that either knew they were going to play in the NFL or were busting their tails to try to get a roster spot. Is that most likely going to be a positive for this season, that guys are busting their tails trying to put up the best tape possible for their pro careers? Or could that be a distraction and a negative?
It really all depends on winning and who are the true leaders. In 2005, I think I've spoken on this a little bit on some different shows. And, like, we got a little bit too greedy. We had a lot of guys that had high draft grades. I had 4 teammates get drafted in the 1st round in that 2005, off of defense alone. We had Leon Washington get drafted. Willie Reed got drafted. I think we ended up having 13 to 15 guys in training camps of some nature. And I think sometimes with there being one ball, one person that can make a tackle, guys get a little bit too focused on my shot. But when you look at what Georgia's been able to accomplish, what Alabama's been able to accomplish, Ohio State, they're getting multiple guys drafted high, but they're playing a branded team ball that's unselfish. And I think that's what Coach Norvell has to really put in their mind, is that don't worry about what your stats are. Worry about what your film says. Like you'll see every year in the draft, a wide receiver get drafted early who only had 900 yards, and people will say he didn't get over 1,000. How could that happen? But when you go back and you look at the tape, you look at what he was able to do. An offensive coordinator in the NFL was able to see that and relate to that. Same thing at running back. There are numbers, there are marks that you want to hit, but those aren't guaranteed to get you to the NFL. And I think if FSU is out there, like the 2013 team is another great example of this. You go out there and you're kicking ass and you're scoring a lot of points and everybody's sharing, being a great teammate. Everybody's going to eat and everybody's going to make their money. But it's very difficult to tell 18 to 23-year-olds to be unselfish and just go out there and do your thing. But I think Coach Norvell has a really good pulse on how to pull the strings for these young men. And the fact that he was able to convince a lot of them to come back already speaks that the NFL is not really it's a priority, but it's not over them trying to win a national championship and bringing that picture back. But to your point, next year's draft is going to be bananas. When you look at the offensive guys eligible and the defensive guys eligible. But Mike also still has a great opportunity to recruit a lot of these guys to come back because Trey Benson still has years. I believe Johnny Wilson can come back another year if he wants to. Jaheim Bell doesn't have to leave, and that's just on. Those are just the offensive weapons. Robert Scott does not have to leave. There's a lot of talent there, and I think name, image, and likeness is also one of the things that is actually keeping young men from making critically bad decisions in leaving. Because I'm not saying Trey Benson wouldn't be a good pro if he left this year. I just think he'll be a better pro coming back and getting another year in college. Johnny Wilson's a good wide receiver in college. We'll probably remember him. There's some things that he still has to clean up that he's just not prepared for to go into the NFL and flourish. He comes back, works on his route tree and route recognition. Next thing you know, he's probably a first-round pick. I think some mocks have him late first round right now. He definitely wasn't going to be a first-day pick if he would have left this year.
Yeah, Mike Norvell can definitely manage a locker room, and we found out this week that he can swing a driver too. That was pretty impressive. Chris, your thoughts about this team from that standpoint? You know, James has a certain perspective that's through the ceiling in terms of validity of experiencing it, but you talk to a lot of these players and know them pretty well too, and have for 2, 3, 4 years now about, you know, making that last push for a championship, but then also kind of in the back of your mind, it's NFL and what do they think of me and what can I do to make myself more draftable?
Well, what I will say is the guys after this draft that I've spoke to, Robert Scott being one of them, Lundy was one of them, and they said, man, it's crazy. Like they were excited because of how many Georgia guys did get drafted, but they were looking at it like, wow, some of the guys from Georgia dropped more than they expected, and those were your national title winners. So they said even with winning a national title, you still could possibly drop. So it's even more important at this point, and this is their words, even more important to win a national title so you don't drop too far. All of them, and I will already say this, Robert Scott is already struggling with that decision because he's being mock drafted in the first round as well for the next season, but he really wants to stay and get his diploma. He wants his degree, excuse me. So he's already starting to be torn very badly. I'm with James about Trey Benson. I'm with him about Johnny Wilson as well. I also think that Mike Norvell is going to do another really good job at recruiting guys that don't have to leave because some of them are already kind of stating that if they don't win it all this year, then they have to come back to try to win it again. I do think if we do pull off a national title some way, somehow, then I don't know if any of them come back. I really don't know if there's a purpose at that point. They've achieved what they wanted to achieve in college. Now it's time to move on to the NFL. But I don't have us winning a national title this year. I think we're good. I think we're a playoff caliber team. I don't know if we're going to be capable of beating what I'm seeing from Ohio State and Georgia right now. Ohio State a little bit less than, but it's just getting a couple more pieces for them. I think if they get a couple more pieces that they're missing, and I think they will, because I think Ron Day is going to do a good job there as far as the portal goes. I think he's going to pull what he needs, and I think Ohio State could potentially be the team that runs for it and could give Georgia fits the same way that they were capable of doing before. So what I think is these guys are focused on the college year. I don't think they're even thinking about the NFL that much because of what Mike Norvell and them set forth for them to do. It's like keeping someone busy, right? Like, say if you're an employee somewhere, it keeps you busy longer to where you're not paying attention to things that maybe are above or below your pay grade. It keeps you in your zone, and that's where you stay. Norvell does really well at that. There's a lot of team meetings or a lot of position meetings that a lot of people don't know about. There's a lot of self-building. There's a lot of stuff like that. So I personally think that we're focused on what this college year is going to be, and we'll see what the draft happens afterwards. And I think he's got them focused very well.
Folks, we posted a video, actually 2 videos this week over on the main channel looking at Florida State and how they may fare in the Big Ten and how they may fare in the SEC. It's just a lot of fun. People kind of go off the deep end and they assume a lot of things when I post these videos. I'm just talking about we're taking schools that have been rumored to be of interest to other conferences and looked at the recent history, meaning like the last 20 years of Florida State against the SEC, Florida State against the Big Ten. How have they fared? We know that those results don't mean a whole lot in 2023, but it's fun to look at. And there are valid results there to look at over the last 10 or 20 years, then project it forward and say, where does this program slot in one of these 2 leagues in the next 5 or 10 years, if that would play out that way. James, if you look at the NFL draft, the SEC, once again, for a 17th consecutive year, had the most draft picks, 62, but the Big Ten was right behind them, 62-55. And actually, the Big Ten had 4 more picks in the first 3 rounds, so they had the higher end guys, if you look at it that way. Then ACC 32, Pac-12, I'll give you the adjusted numbers. If you take USC and UCLA out of the Pac-12, they would have only had 19. If you take Texas and Oklahoma out of the Big 12, and you got to replace them with BYU, Houston, who had good drafts, and the other 2, UCF and Cincinnati, they would have stayed even at 30. But you're projecting forward that the Big 10 and the SEC are going to have 65 to 70 plus draftees in these drafts coming up, and the ACC and the other conferences are going to be 20 to 30 to 35. Does that tell you anything?
I mean, right now it's just you'd be asking how to not think the Big Ten and the SEC aren't playing really good football, better NFL caliber football. When you look at the coaching staff they got, who are the top coaches there? One of them would be Jim Harbaugh. I know people don't want to say that, but Big Ten, Michigan, he comes from out of the NFL. Hell, he played in the Super Bowl. Probably should have won it. Beat his brother so bad they reset the PlayStation, and then he came back. And then when you think about what Alabama having Nick Saban, he goes there, and what happens is NFL, NCAA, every high school, middle school, everything is mimic ball. If you see what somebody's doing and they're having success, then you go and you immediately want to try to replicate the exact same thing. So when you look at coaching staff, development, everybody has director of player personnel. These schools have huge director of player personnel departments whose full job is to make sure that NFL scouts know everything they need to know about their draft eligible players. So I have no idea. Can you hear these boys back here?
Not too much. We're
okay.
good. We got you. It's probably a good thing we don't hear them. I just hear a bunch of racket. So
okay, all right, cool, all right. But I say all that to say is that the ACC is coming. When you look at what Florida State has coming, and give Miami some respect, they have some guys that are coming as well. North Carolina is going to have Drake May. Like when you look at the quarterbacks in the ACC, they'll have some of the better quarterbacks. You'll have which means you're going to have some of the better skill players. You're going to have some of the better running backs. And I think it's just the timing. They caught us. Was it Tagleby? This is Mike Norvell's third. This is year 4. So 6 years ago, the ACC had a bunch of young up and coming coaches. When you look at Florida State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina was just getting Mac Brown, so he's not necessarily young, but refurbished. Miami was just getting Manny Diaz involved, but then a lot of those guys didn't work out. Now you had to get rid of them. A lot of them made some really good changes, and you're starting to see development come back. But when Florida State and Clemson are at their peak, the ACC is doing their damn thing. So I think there's going to be a lot of draftable guys coming out here soon, and the product's going to be good. But as you talked about, you have to leave. And as Mike Alford said, we have to leave. We cannot give up $50,000 a year that goes into development of players, that goes into the resources of the university, that goes into all these bells and whistles that a lot of mustache Pete's and old heads don't think you need. But man, did I need to get in the hyperbaric chamber when I was in college? No, but I sure as hell would have liked to have gotten one. Sleep deprivation. Would have liked to have one. Would have liked to have a lot of the stuff that these guys are having. It's because if your body is healed properly, that means you develop, you become bigger, you become faster, you become stronger. And that's where I think the real drop off is. And for the life of me, this is one thing I want to make sure I stress. While it is the conference that they represent, it is not Vanderbilt out here going out here and producing tons and tons of NFL athletes. The Boilermakers, while a very good school, they're not going out here developing tons and tons of NFL athletes. It is the traditional powers that are taking this money and they're reinvesting it into their programs. And I think Florida State is ready to do that. We just have to get the opportunity to get this handicap off.
Yeah, so it means that if the Big Ten wants to surpass the SEC on more draft picks, if that's the goal, you just add Florida State, it'll happen. It's simple. That's the big thing, and I wish I would have brought that up before the show started, Mark. But there was a rumor, so to speak, that was from a very valid source, and I've seen you speak on it yourself, and we've spoken on it multiple times about 4 to 5 schools were going to contest against the ACC Bill of Rights or whatever it is, the Grant of Rights, excuse me. It hasn't happened yet, but they say it's going to happen before the season starts. My question is, they've got a new commissioner now at the Big Ten. Obviously, you keep up with all of that. What did you read between the lines with that episode that you did about what the commissioner said? They're not that impressed or with expanding again, or it'll come in the future, or did they say anything to that nature?
Well, these presidents and chancellors and conference commissioners who basically, depending on the strength of those presidents and the commissioner in that particular conference, I think are a mouthpiece most of the time of the presidents and not necessarily speaking on their own. If they're smart, they're very measured with their words so that they don't come back to bite them. And for both the chancellor of the University of Illinois, Robert Jones, and then Tony Petitti, the new commissioner of the Big Ten, they left the window open. They wanted to be very upfront, kind of like, leave us alone, don't bother us. We're not expanding. We're not realigning. This is not a priority, but it's not a priority at the moment. The other terminology they used was, yes, it's not at the moment. And everything that they said, there was like a tagline to it that basically left it like, not right this second, not right this second, not right now. So if you read, you don't even need to read between the lines. It basically says, yeah, you can't bring these words back on us 3 months from now if we're bringing in whomever, because we just told you right at the moment, shoot, they could be taking a coffee break at the boardroom and be coming back in 10 minutes and working on it. So I didn't take a whole lot from that, except for they know how to speak.
Well, it's impressive to me that, when we had Michael Alford on, and he told us that McCullough's main goal for FSU was to get the AAU membership basically invite. We wanted it, and that was his goal. That's why he's here, which we all kind of already knew. But for him to say it on the show, it obviously it allowed fans to really believe what we were or basically confirming what we have been saying for quite a while. That's why I don't think that – I'm not saying the Florida State would not go to the SEC. I just don't think it's the best move. I think the better move is to go to the Big Ten. And I just – with the new commissioner – I don't know how much say-so he's got because, like you said, there's presidents over him, there's chancellors, there's all this. But just hopefully that would be a welcome, we'll take a Florida State. We don't have that. And you've made, on your past episodes, some very valid points of what it would do for the Big Ten to take a Florida State and others, but Florida State to get them in the state of Florida and just all the things that it does for it. Other than Destin Hill at Florida State, this is the biggest thing that everybody's talking about is conference realignment. It has not gone away since it started, and I'm not unhappy about that because I love talking about it. But everyone, 10 days is when Destin Hill's supposed to show up. It's supposed to be 10 days. I've seen multiple questions about Destin Hill. Is the announcement? We were supposed to announce something at 6, Florida State was, and it got pushed back for whatever reason. and everybody thought it was about Destin Hill being on campus. And then you even see McMillan put up there, welcome Destin Hill to Tallahassee. He probably just confused a whole lot of people. I don't know if you lost a lot of viewers or not, but people probably started looking to see if Florida State did anything. It has not been announced yet what the announcement is, but it's coming. It's just been pushed.
Well, I will say that if I was a smart businessman just looking for clicks and nothing else, then I would be talking about realignment 24/7, because that's all people are looking for. You know, there are nights in where I shut down a live stream, and then obviously you guys know what the deal is. YouTube throws you all the traffic that they think you want to see, and I'll see like 12 live streams, college football related. I'll know who like 2 of them are. The other 10, I have no idea who they are, and they'll all be talking about realignment. And I'll think, is there anything new out there? No, there's not. But they just keep talking about it. People love it. People love the speculation. I get it. And when I believe that there's a valid reason to talk about it, like the other day, the Big Ten commissioner had things to say, the chancellor at the University of Illinois, therefore I will read into it, and and then I also try to separate, okay, there's a bucket of truth, facts that we know these are facts. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have innuendos and lies and hearsay and wild speculation and all that. Well, there's a big bucket in the middle where we've got metrics, what we know about TV ratings and TV markets and brands and recruiting status and metrics that we can use and say, okay, this doesn't tell us what the Big Ten's going to do or what Florida State's going to do, but we know that these things are on their minds and these things are on their pecking order of priorities. So we can kind of speculate, okay, these things are important to them. In what order? I don't know. Academics higher on the totem pole for certain conferences than others, and so forth and so on. And so we can make a reasonable argument. And that's kind of the place where I take the facts, but then I take that big pool of statistics and metrics and sound logic, hopefully, and put it together to make a reasonable argument as to why something may occur or has a likelihood to occur. Speaking of which, we got a Pac-12 contingent. We got a Big 12 contingent going at it tonight at 8:30 Eastern time on a realignment debate. And you know what that's all about. That's basically the Pac-12 people saying, our conference isn't going anywhere. We're staying together. We're going to have a media rights deal anytime soon. We're good to go. And the Big 12 people saying, you're falling apart. You're coming our way. We're going to pluck you out of, and you guys are going to dissolve. So it should be a heck of a debate.
I need to get my head restrung. Like, I just got restrung.
You saying something?
Go ahead, James. You got something?
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say it's one of those things where it's inevitable. We know there's change, and they've been talking about this since my first sports management class in 2000. It was an ESPN article, college football Pangea. Everything's going to eventually go into not Power 5, but Power 3, even Power 2 at some point. But it's kind of a thing where people you can keep talking about it because there's a fear of the unknown and the fear of change. It's just like NIL is still going to always be able to be something that's going to give you clicks. But the reality is, I believe in 3 years, very few people will talk about the NIL in the manner in which they talk about. Because remember, when early signing period came about, that was going to be the death of college football. Making these kids make decisions and take visits early was going to do this. Everything is always doom and gloom, or on the other side, overly optimistic. Me, the only thing that I really care about this in all of this as a businessman, as a guy who gets paid per click, as a guy who gets paid, is what is it going to do to the bottom line? And you got to always follow the money. And I think with the NCAA expanding playoff, I personally didn't fully, but I saw an article that was written on me in 2004 where I was vehemently opposed to a college football playoff. But now I know it doesn't matter what I feel. I know what the money states, and the money is stating that we're going to continue to expand this playoff. we're going to go to less conferences so that teams are getting more money with these TV deals, and then they're just going to pick the teams that they want to be in that playoff so that we continue to get the odds, and that's kind of what the reality is.
I don't know if you guys got a chance to see what is going to be the college football playoff schedule. Speaking of which, in 2024, so the conference championship games are the first weekend of December, basically played on Saturday. And then 2 weeks from there, we're going to have a Friday night game. We're going to have a triple header on Saturday, on-site games, on campus, first round games. Then about 11 days later, quarterfinal games on Tuesday and Wednesday because they're New Year's Eve and January 1st, New Year's Day games with the triple header there. Same concept, one game on the New Year's Eve night and then 3 games the next day. Then they give the players 8 days to turn around and play semifinal games, not back-to-back, not a double header, but on consecutive nights, Thursday and Friday, before what is a national championship game on a date that used to look like a Super Bowl date, January 20th. What do you think of that, Chris?
I like it a lot better than the 4. I mean, ESPN just put a target on Florida State's back, so this helps us out. They've got post-spring college football top 25. They've got Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, South Carolina, Ohio State. So if we stay in the top 12, this is the future. This is what it looks like. So I'm impressed. I really am. I think it. I don't want to say that college football is turning into the NFL, but I don't know if people pay attention to how the universities are being ran in the programs. But this is amazing, I think. I think it's – what do we always want more of?
Football. More football.
So, I mean, this is what it gives you. And, you know, a lot of – I think some coaches don't like it, and they're not going to speak on that. But for the guys that stay in that top 10 range every other year or every year, they love it because it gives their team an opportunity to be that juggernaut that comes up and takes out guys that maybe you don't expect to. But I think both of y'all would agree with me that over the past couple of years, at least the last 5, there's been a major difference in the number 1 and 2 team and the number 5 to 10 in my eyes. Like, yes, there's a much better play of football going on. I'm hoping that this starts leveling out due to the NIL, due to the transfer portal. I think that's what evens this out. And I think over the next year or so that will. But I really like this. I think it's going to be really fun, and it gives us way more football to watch.
What do you think, James?
I ain't got to do it, so I want to watch more football. So. But I think what Chris was saying is, like, I think the number 1 match, actually outside of that this season, and I don't know what the matchup was between Georgia and Ohio State. That was a very interesting game, and Ohio State lost that game more than Georgia won. But then you saw what happened when Georgia got a chance to kick TCU's teeth in. But I do think, while I might not want to see a blowout, I would be interested, like if this format was here, I would have been interested in seeing, maybe Florida State USC, as opposed to seeing USC versus Tulane, because both those teams will be playing for something that matters. To be able to go to the quarterfinals, to be able to continue to progress and move forward. And I think what you'll see though is not in the beginning, but you'll probably see more of an NBA model. And what do I mean by that? If you look at how the NBA kind of starts to fall in place, teams win and lose games to where they can get lower seeds so that they can get a better matchup. If anybody was even paying remote attention to what the Lakers were doing, it was actually like, they had to play a play-in game. You win the play-in game, you get Memphis. I would much rather play Memphis than play the Suns or play somebody else. Like, it's a better matchup for you. And I think that may be what you start to see. Like you can see Alabama, who has talent. If Alabama comes in as a 12 seed, I'm laying money on Nick Saban until Nick Saban dies. And even then, I'm laying money on him in hell because I think he's a good coach. So those are the things that I think people will start seeing. And I use the gambling metaphor because at the end of the day, no Mark, you'll probably start getting some of this too. Anybody who knows marketing, everything is ran by gambling. That's where the money is. That's who's financing everything. They're going to do whatever gives the American public the more opportunity.
That's a good call, James. The only thing I'll push back on your NBA model would be in the NBA or professional sports, those teams can make those decisions about seeding to blow a game or do whatever because the standings are objective. But in college football, to kind of calculate that kind of move to lose a game, for example, to try to get to a certain seeding, well, that's all predicated on what is that committee going to rank us? We don't know how they're going to take this loss and if they're going to drop us from 5 to 8 or 5 to 11 or where that's going to take us, as opposed to, again, with objective standings, you can say we're 50-20, they're 51-19. If we lose this, then we slot there because they got the tiebreaker, and then that drops us in the seeding. Okay, that's what we'll do.
I think it's more an 11-2 Alabama knows they're going to get in over an 11-2 UCF.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Sure.
I mean, I think it's
I
like
got you.
everybody's not going to be able to do that. You got to have something stored, like, some kind of brand recognition, because even then, a lot of those things are all determined upon TV ratings and who's going to match up. Like, well, at least, what it actually brings us back to almost? A time that I really enjoyed back in the day with it. Basically, we're getting our bowls, like our bowl season mattering, like the top ones. Like nobody really watched the Micron PC Bowl like that, but we did
Except for
used to
me.
watch some of the other ones, the Big Six, or the New Year's Six, or there's a
Yep.
couple ones outside of that. So this right here again, it makes us care about. Like, think about how many games you cared about that first week of college of bowl games in December, unless you're a junkie like us. But like now, if I know December 20th, like I'm gonna make sure my kids are shutting up. My dad's gonna get his popcorn. He's gonna get his good food. He's gonna get his good beer. He's gonna sit there. He's gonna watch the day. I would watch. What is that? 12 hours, 9 hours of football on Saturday. I would be watching college. I would not leave. And then and then Tuesday, you know, hopefully Florida State will be playing in one of these games. So I would be, if Florida State's playing, I'll be preparing for a tailgate. But if they're not, I'm going to be sitting my butt down somewhere, watching some good college football, and ignoring my family on a national holiday, and so on and so on. So I think that's kind of what I meant by that. My positioning is it's really not so much the losing. It's losing on purpose. Is that if you lost 2 games, you don't feel like you're out of it. You can still keep playing and start, because you still have a chance. Right now, if you lose 2 games, you have no chance. You should have no chance to win the national championship. As you know, as it is now, like you have to go. If you go undefeated, you have a chance to go in the power, in the top 4. Especially guys who are not SEC teams. Like Alabama knows they can lose 1 game, and they're going to get a chance to play for a national championship. We've seen this over the last decade that they get that grace. But everybody else feels like they have to go undefeated. And now you don't really feel like you have to do that. You just have to consistently be playing meaningful games.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of great matchups between LSU and Auburn are 7-2 right now, playing in Week 10. It's a nice game. It's if you just want to watch a football game, 2 top 10 to 15 teams, but they're done for the playoff. But now that becomes a critical game. That becomes a great game. We're going to see all sorts of games like that going forward.
And the only rebuttal that I would have, really, Mark, because I agree as far as the NBA model, but the only rebuttal I have is how lenient they were on TCU. I understand they only lost 1, but TCU really deserved to be in the playoffs? Like, really? I mean, I don't think so.
Not if you're evaluating talent. No. They earned it on the field in regards to the results, but I will say this, and then you guys can wrap it up with pitching your channels, because we'll need to wrap it up. But I'll say it this way. In 2019, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State were by far the 3 best teams in the country. They were all undefeated. The 4th spot went to Oklahoma because they were the Big 12 champ and they only had 1 loss. And then they got roasted, gave up 49 points in the first half to LSU. So people asked me when the the playoff selections came out, did they get it right? And I said, in terms of who earned it, yeah, they got it right. Oklahoma, they won the Big 12. They only have one loss. They should be in the playoff. But they're not one of the 4 best teams in the country. Alabama should be in there with the other 3. And sure enough, Alabama's not losing 63-28 to LSU. They only lost to them by 1 score during the regular season. Those were the 4 best teams in the country. So are we selecting the 4 best or the 4 that earned it? TCU earned it. Alabama should have been there. Tennessee, you could pick. Yeah, those are pretty much the 2 teams.
Yeah, but do you take I'm going to make it quick. Do you take an SEC team with 2 losses or a TCU with 1?
Again, it depends on whether you take the team that earned it or the team that's better, just based on pure talent evaluation.
And then that's where I think it comes back to money and they start getting it right. Let's have the better game. But y'all can come watch me on Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30. James and I do a show every Monday and Thursday. I don't know who my guest is Thursday. I've got quite a few people ready to do it. So we're going to surprise you. But be there tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. And I actually have a space to get to right now. So, Mark, as always, I really appreciate you having me on. Love the conversation. I really do. It was one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate you being here. And for James, we've got his link there in the chat. Everyone jump on board. You can win some money. Get James to 2K on Den Media Group. I still have that bad habit, James. Den Media Group, everyone. The link's in the chat.
Yes, sir. That's it. Trying to get to 2K. We were at 50 when the show started. If we get to 2K when I get done with this team dinner and I do my show, we'll be giving $200. If not, I think we'll probably reach it by Friday. You have to be on the lives. And what happens if you're a member, you get an extra go. But if you're not, everybody who puts their Cash App or their whatever it is, the way you like to get your payment, that's how we do. We do a little spinorama thing, little wheel thing, and it selects who gets it, and that's how you get paid. So every increment of 1,000, we give away 10% of that. So appreciate it, Mark. And I'm gonna go out here and wish us luck. Hopefully, I get a state championship in lacrosse.
Oh, nice. Thanks for the bus ride, James.
All
Go
right,
get
bro.
them.